Bond market took a whack today. The sell-off caused mortgage rates to shoot up, a 14-year high. Senior real estate correspondent Diana Olick with us with the impact on the housing market. Diana.
Well, Shep, the average on the popular 30-year fixed mortgage shot up to 6.28% today. That matches a one-day high we saw in June, and it was that high that really turned the red-hot housing market on its heels. Why? Because at 6.28%, if you're buying a $400,000 home with 20% down, your monthly payment is now close to $700 more a month than it was at the start of this year. And that higher rate also keeps potential sellers from listing, because who wants to trade a 3% rate for twice that just to move to another house, Shep?
But here's the thing about that, though. You know, a lot of people are not really having this conversation, and they're having it in a vacuum. And the real estate market has basically come to a halt. Real estate agents, sellers, buyers, nobody is participating in this market because nobody can truly afford, according to what it is that they're calculating. If you go from a 3% rate to a 6% rate, and your rate actually changes to where your payment, because most people calculate how much their affordability is based off of their payment, and there's no bigger way to be able to compare by looking at houses and the rate that you would pay as they're continuing to try to fight inflation, right? Because mortgage rates are raising, credit card interest rates are raising, loan rates are raising, because of the Fed's one and true tried tool to try to hedge off inflation, which is still above 8%. Last I checked, it was at 8.3%. It's absolutely insane. But let's really break this down for a second, guys. Okay, let's really just think about what somebody would be paying different, $700 more, even if you put 20% down. So that means that you're not even paying PMI, which is private mortgage insurance, right? And if you were to buy a house now at a 6.28 or 6.3% interest rate versus yesteryear, you're literally paying what a $400,000 house at 20% down. So let's just say you put in $80,000 down, and you're mortgaging or you're financing $320,000. You're paying $700 more a month. $700 more per month. How does that make you feel? Because everything has pretty much come to a halt. Nobody is participating in what's going on in society today, right? It's the first time since the 2008 financial crisis that mortgage rates have topped 6%. And when people are used to paying a specific thing, because I know that one of the arguments that a lot of people will make is, well, you know, we used to pay this percentage in our day, or we used to pay this. This ain't your day, big dog. And you have to understand that there's an entire economy that's being upended as a result of what's going on. Now, what is the solution? We can talk about that quickly. But let's just say, for example, let's use a bigger amount. Let's say a borrower buys a $500,000 house and puts down $100,000 and a rate of 2.86%, right? You could expect to pay the equivalent of $200,000 in interest over a 30-year period. First of all, for me, that's egregious, because one of the reasons why I say that you never get a 30, and when you actually get a 15, a lot of people will say, well, let's get a 30 and let's just pay it off in 15. You never do that. You never actually do that. Life happens. You make the adjustment according to whatever it is that you feel like you can afford. But you're going to pay $200,000, basically half of what you mortgage if you put down 20%. Most people is only putting down 3.5%. And then you got the Bank of America loan where they're trying to get black people and Hispanic people to where you ain't got to put no money down. Let me show you what the difference is. You would pay $200,000 in interest over a 30-year period. And if your rate is, and that's if your rate is 2.86%, right? If your rate is 6.02%, which is closer to what it is now, you could pay $465,000 in interest, according to a mortgage calculator that I just brought up. $200,000 in interest, so that's on top of whatever it is that you purchased the house. So the true purchase price of that $500,000 house at 2.86% is $700,000. That's what financing does. It rewards the servicers of the mortgage, or the servicer of the loan is the person that you pay the interest to. You're going to pay an additional $200,000 on top of that. On top of that, let's flip it and let's assume that you buy a $500,000 house at 6.02% interest rate. It's a possibility you could pay almost $1 million total for that loan. Think about that for 5 seconds. Because I'm a C student, so we got to break it down to C student language. Let's continue.
Inflation's having something of a positive effect on the rental market. No? What are we seeing there?
Yeah, apartment rents are still rising across most of the country, but the gains have now fallen back to much more normal levels. Asking rents for new leases rose 0.4% from July to August, according to RealPage. The gains were 5 times that at the same time last year. Pre-COVID, the average monthly rent increase in August was 0.2%. Just 17 of the nation's largest 150 markets saw annual rent gains go up. Much of that is because inflation makes it harder for renters to afford those big jumps. So landlords are now having trouble retaining their renters. And
think about that. So now the landlords are also suffering because even if they want to capitalize off the fact that they can raise rents based off of inflation, right? Because it costs more for them to be able to hold on and buy and purchase these properties, in addition to the costs associated with fixing, maintaining, so on and so forth. Even if these landlords are finding renters to pay the additional amount, they still have to deal with the turnover that comes along with it, which if anybody has followed me on the Millionaire Morning Show or you're a part of the Patreon, shout out to my bag chasers. The link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat if you want to rock out with the bag chasers. If anybody has rocked out with me for an extended period of time, you already know that my strategy with regard to finding renters, and I have never ever raised the rent on any of my renters once they get into the property. Now, if somebody was to ever move out, which I have a fierce loyalty because of how I treat the people that rent out my properties and my ability to vet. And I do have a video inside of the Patreon that breaks down what I look for when I'm looking for tenants. Because of what I vet, and how I treat my tenants, I don't need a property manager. I don't need to raise the rents whatsoever because I'm not greedy, and I'd rather maintain the relationship with somebody that's actually taking care of the property and paying on time than for somebody that's looking to move out, because then turnover is one of the things that you got to deal with if you decide to be a property owner, right? Nobody wants to deal with turnover. The longer that you hold on to an employee, longer that you hold on to a renter, longer that you hold on to somebody that you're doing business with, the better. Retention is much better than trying to acquire new customers 10 times out of 10. But the rental market is upended also because now, even if you can get higher rents, people are much more likely to leave or make adjustments based off of the volatility of what's going on in the market, layoffs, increase in prices, life changes, all of that type of stuff. But if you can maintain some level of stability, then you will be a winner in this market. So I want to know what you guys think. Are you affected or even still considering buying a house? Are you into the whole Bank of America? I don't trust Bank of America personally. And maybe I'll do another video that's a deep dive on that separately from the Millionaire Morning Show. Do you want to do it to zero down? Did you really calculate what you would be paying in interest over a 30-year period? Or are you a bag chaser being a lot more intentional and taking my advice, as well as having conversations inside of the Discord about how we're supposed to move when it comes to being successful with our finances? I want to know what your thoughts are. Let me know in the comments. Make sure you tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. If you need to kick it with me personally, email me at antondaniels413@gmail.com and we're going to get it popping. I love you guys. I appreciate you, but I need you to do me one more favor before we get up out of here. Make sure you share this with your family and friends. We don't want to be successful by ourselves. I love you. I appreciate you. Make sure you secure that bag. No fumbling on a Thursday, Friday, or any day of the week for that matter. We are going to get to this bag. I'm going to holler at you later. Peace.